Hey guys, and welcome to my yearly advanced tips and tricks video. This guide has a mix of techniques I came up with and techniques you guys have asked me to make a tutorial on. As always, this video is aimed towards more advanced players that already know the basics, but even new players will benefit from the easier techniques in this video. Please subscribe to help me get 30k and let's get right into it.
I feel like the man now. My hand like Vivian West with the way it's on her name. And she called me a bastard the way I spend my chase. I got hundreds of hundreds, let's put this shit.
Tip number 1 is an easy and powerful way to win fights against sweats and good players. I assume you already know about hit selecting, where you wait for an opponent's hit and then attack them right after to start a combo. Lots of good players use this technique and it works amazingly against someone who's going for the first hit. What I've started doing when fighting good players is running into the fight while swinging my sword like crazy. If your opponent is good, they'll see you swinging and realize that they can go for a hit select, but this is where I trick them. Instead of going for the first hit, I purposefully miss them or stop swinging altogether, meaning they get the first hit, allowing me to hit select them cleanly. So to recap, you run in swinging, stop at the last second, and then hit select off of their first hit. You can see here that as I run towards my opponent, I swing my sword into the air, showing him my intention to get the first hit. Then, right as I get close, I stop swinging, allowing him to hit me first and hit selecting right after, winning me the fight. This technique is specifically designed to counter good players, but it can be used anywhere to strengthen your hit selects. At one point, I was even able to beat a cheater in a mode they should never lose by fake selecting. This is a very powerful technique that players of all skill levels can use, so I highly encourage you to start trying it out and manipulating your opponents.
Before I hit the mall, I hit the bank and take some bands out. Yo bitch heard my music and she love it, she a fan now.
Bad bitch, shawty fine and she know that. I can never come a thought, but I love it when she throw that. Hey, she break it down for you round, hear the sound, red dot on his nose, now he looking like a clown. Hey.
Tip 2 is another PvP technique I've been developing that I call the inward strafe. If you've seen my first tips and tricks video, you'll probably remember strafe switching. Inward strafing works off of a similar principle. When you strafe switch, your aim switches as well in order to knock the opponent off in the other direction. For inward strafing, you still want to switch your strafe direction, but you don't switch your aim. The best use I found for this is to start a fight by showing my opponent an angle or strafe. You can see here that I run into the fight strafing with D and aiming to the left. My opponent then sets up to counter this, but right before the fight starts, I start strafing with A instead of D. The reason this works so well is that people are so used to strafing in the opposite direction that they're aiming. Nobody expects you to strafe in the same direction because that would mean you mess up your own aim as well. So by not switching my aim and only switching my strafe key, I can essentially disappear from an opponent's field of view entirely, leading to clips like these where a simple inward strafe leaves my opponent completely lost as they have no idea where I went. If you also switched your aim when strafing inwards, your opponent would see that you're switching strafes and probably not lose you entirely, so it's important to not switch your aim at the same time you strafe inwards and instead do it right after. I developed this as a low ping player in order to counter high ping, but it should also work if you're high ping trying to fight someone with low ping. Now, tip 3 is one I've been asked to teach for a very long time, and for good reason. Long block hitting is possibly the single most powerful, easy technique in Bedwars. There's many ways to do it, but the general idea stays the same. You hold block on all of your opponent's hits to greatly reduce the damage you take. The easiest way to long block hit is when you're stuck in a hole with someone. Instead of clicking and blocking randomly, you hold right click to block your sword and then quickly release right click, left click once, and hold right click again to sneak hits through. It should look like this when you time it correctly. Because you're only unblocking your sword for a few frames at a time, this usually means that you'll end up blocking all of your opponent's hits, significantly reducing the damage they deal you and winning you the fight. This technique also works amazingly for 2v1s since both opponents take full damage from your hits, but you block all of theirs. This technique does have one weakness though, and that is the reduced momentum. When you're blocking your sword, you can't move very quickly, and thus you will take a lot of knockback when using this technique. That's why the most common scenario to long block hit is when you're stuck in or under blocks, so that you don't take any KB anyways. In this clip, I purposely orient myself into this hole so that I can long block hit and win a 2v1 that I had no business surviving. In this clip, I also try to long block hit my opponent, but since my back isn't to the wall, he ends up getting a double hit on me given my bad momentum, and I almost lose the fight. If done correctly though, you can also long block hit in the open. If you have low ping, the way to do this is by running or jumping forwards, clicking your opponent once, and immediately right clicking to block your opponent's hit. You can keep chaining this to trade crit hits for your opponent's blocked hits, easily winning on damage. And if you don't get knocked far enough away, switch to the normal long block hitting pattern until you get some space. In this clip, we start the fight on equal health, but because I'm always critting my opponent and his hits are always getting blocked, I end up winning with almost half my health left. If you're on high ping, the method changes a little bit. Since your opponent will get the first hit, you instead start with your sword blocked and then hit your opponent after blocking their first hit. The pattern for trades is still the same though. So to initiate a long block hit with low ping, you hit first, but with high ping, you block first. Since this technique is done with single clicking, you can do it on any mouse or even a trackpad. That being said, this is a technique anyone can learn, so definitely give it a try in your Bedwars games.
Long block it on. Turn around and long block it on.
I don't know how to do that.
Ooh, not bad. You killed him!
He died to
You got him! Nice.
The fourth tip is another high-level technique you've asked me to make a tutorial on. But before I get into that, if you like my tutorials, please subscribe to my channel. We're getting so close to my ultimate goal of 30,000 subscribers and YouTube rank on Hypixel. Thanks in advance, and let's move on to jump resetting. Jump resetting is a term that you've probably heard thrown around before, but a lot of people don't actually know what it is. Put simply, it's the ultimate KB reduction technique. To jump reset, all you need to do is jump at the same time your opponent hits you. If done correctly, it results in you taking way less and sometimes even negative knockback. In this clip, me and my opponent trade hits, and you can see that I take about 6 blocks of knockback. In the next trade, I jump reset on his second hit and take absolutely no knockback instead, instantly winning me the fight. You might be wondering, if this technique is so powerful, why doesn't everyone constantly use it? That's because this technique is very high risk, high reward. If you don't time your jump correctly, it results in you taking way more knockback than you would have without jumping. Because of this, there's two main scenarios that I mainly use jump resets in. The first scenario is to escape an opponent's combo. This works because you're usually being hit at set intervals, so you can accurately time your jump to one of the hits in the combo and ruin your opponent's spacing. You can see here that I'm being comboed, but on the hit that I jump reset, I take no backwards knockback, meaning my opponent walks into my range and I can escape. I then notice my opponent is trying to jump reset on the first hit of our trades and delay my hit until after he's jumped. Because he mistimed it, he ends up taking way more KB and instantly loses. High risk, high reward. In this clip, I'm fighting a notorious cheater, but I jump reset out of his combo and manage to win the game from there. The other scenario where I jump reset is on the second hit of trades. Once you get hit the first time, you know the timing that the next hit will come and can jump reset against it. Because you can time it so accurately, you can sometimes even get a perfect jump reset, moving forwards through their hit like in these clips. These are the two main scenarios I look to jump reset in, but over time I've gotten better and opened up more use cases. By chaining multiple jump resets in a row, I've been able to stay in one spot during trades or even move forwards through them. Because it's so high risk, I recommend learning by just jump resetting in the two scenarios I outlined before expanding to more general cases. Hopefully, I've helped some of you understand what jump resetting is and how to use it effectively.
The only way I get to you, and we can make a toast, girl, if you want to. You can come back in my life, I want you to hit me back. I'm not over you. You're the reason why all my checks.
For tip 5, I want to show you a common scenario that you can exploit by using predictive gameplay. When an opponent is on low health, they often try to jump into the fight to land a crit in order to deal as much damage as possible before dying. If you can predict this, you can simply take a step backwards to evade their crit and then hit select and win the fight from there. Another implementation can be seen in this clip, where I'm one crit away from dying, so I predict that my opponent will jump forwards and I block my sword, allowing me to get another combo and win the fight. Predicting your opponent's jumps can allow you to win close fights in many situations.
I thought I hit you. That's brutal.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that's right. Let your dreams take flight. Watch the line go up, until it breaks right through. Goes a whole new.
In keeping with tradition from my last tips video, I saved my favorite tip for tip number 6. This is the drive-thru, a name that comes from this second channel joke and this clip.
Look at that, I built a drive-through window to keep him over there.
The basic implementation is as follows. You build a sideways pillar 3 blocks above the ground and then another pillar directly under it on the ground, leaving the middle blocks open. This allows you to hit opponents through the gap but prevents them from walking through it. This completely stops their forward momentum, meaning they won't be able to hit you and will usually take a ton of KB from a double hit. You want to set up drive-thrus at least a block away from you because you need to be able to run towards the gap to maximize your reach. There's also some psychological elements at play here, as if you had built a full wall, your opponent would have immediately switched objectives to getting around it. However, since the gap is at eye level and they can see you, they almost always try to hit you through the drive-thru, making for an easy kill. You can set these up directly on the ground like in this example, or move the bottom block a row out so your opponents get caught standing on it. You can even build elevated drive-thrus off the ground like in this clip. The shape of the drive-thru itself isn't super important. You can make them with corners, only 1 block long, or using existing slabs on the ground. The important part is to have 2 block-offs with a gap in the middle so you can still hit your opponent through it. The beauty of this technique is that you can adapt it to any situation and set it up incredibly quickly. Once you get comfortable with it, you can use drive-thrus to control fights and destroy your opponents. This is my favorite PvP technique in the game right now, so definitely give it a try.
Oh, what a beautiful example of that.
Up next, I'm going to show you how to successfully break beds more often. When someone has a 1-block defense, your main goal should almost always be to separate the defender from the bed using blocks. I still see so many people trying to kill the defender before mining the bed, but even if you do win the first fight, you'll be on low health and probably won't get the final. Using the block off strategy will drastically increase your success rate, and conveniently, it seems like 90% of players still use a 1-wall defense. This technique varies based on the situation, but there's still a few main ones to cover. If your opponent gives you an easy way to separate them from the bed, all you usually need is a single horizontal pillar to block them on the other side. Other times you'll need to fight opponents for a second to open up space for a block off, but your main goal should still be to block them off in these cases, as you can then easily get the final from there. In less obvious cases, you can spam a crazy amount of blocks to completely prevent an opponent from getting to a particular side of the defense, leading to an easy bed break. In this clip, I have a few chances to maybe get the bed, but I could get knocked off in the process. So I focus on blocking my opponent off completely, guaranteeing myself the final kill as well as the bed. I have a lot of examples of these bed breaks resulting from me getting fireball. These examples show that even if you only have half a second to look at the defense, you can usually spam blocks between you and the opponent in order to get the bed. You should always be buying shears, but even if you don't have shears or your opponent has a different 1-block defense, you should still be aiming to block them off, as it gains you so much time that it doesn't even matter. At the highest level, this technique works even when you aren't close to the bed. In this clip, the opponent runs out before I can make it to his bed, so I start by constructing block-offs until I can trap him on one side of the defense and mine his bed from the other. I hope I've been able to show you how powerful blocking off opponents is when trying to break 1-block bed defenses. I definitely think you should implement this tech instead of simply fighting the bed defender. Tip 8 is another technique I've been repeatedly asked to make a tutorial on, the Bonker Boost. The Bonker Boost is an advanced block edit used to speed up on flat ground and more. The simplest version is as follows. You sprint jump forwards and aim around 4 blocks ahead of you and 1 to the side. Then at the highest point of your jump, you build up a 3-block pillar and place 1 block out in front of you from the top, which you can land under and spam jump to speed up. Bonker Boosts can actually be done with every clicking technique. You can do them with drag, butterfly, no double click butterfly, and even single clicking. Of course, the higher CPS techniques do have an advantage as you don't have to be as meticulous with your timing, but it's worth noting that you can do this on any mouse. To make a Bonker Boost, you first aim at the block you want to build it, and then bring your crosshair upwards to place the 3 blocks in a pillar. Because you've been moving forwards ever since you jumped, you're now close enough to place the last block as you bring your cursor back to the center. So the general aiming motion should look like a straight line up with a small flick in at the end. However, the actual motion varies a little based on the clicking technique you're using. With drag, you're getting a lot of clicks spaced evenly, so you can just quickly swipe through the whole motion in one go, like in these examples, which is why drag is definitely the best method for this technique. If you're using butterfly, you'll also get high CPS, but with worse spacing, so you need to do the motion a little slower overall. If you're single clicking or using no double click butterfly, you need to be very intentional about your timing. The whole motion should be slow and not have any unnecessary movements, but still fast enough to build it before you get there. A good way to practice this is by running next to a line of blocks, and only building the top 3 of the boost. Then switch to doing it on flat ground once you're comfortable, since you now only need to add the first block. Once you have the basic flat Bonker Boost down, there are some advanced derivatives. With the fast clicking techniques, you can also do Bonker Boost when jumping off of a block, by doing the motion very fast and closer to you than usual. I've even been able to make it work from a 2-block fall. I've also started doing them off axis at more diagonal angles. In this clip, I hit an off-axis Bonker Boost and end up beating my opponent's fireball, safely making it to the base. Once you're really comfortable, you can even start to chain them for bigger speed increases. You may be wondering if this technique is even useful, considering all it does is give you a speed boost, but it totally is in certain scenarios. In these clips, I utilize Bonker Boosts to get enough speed to catch my opponents right as they get to the edge, managing to knock them off and win the fights before they could really even make it onto the island. In this clip, I'm running emeralds and I see green coming to mid, so I hit 2 Bonker Boosts to get enough speed to collect the emerald gen before him and safely get all the M's and diamonds back to my base, eventually winning me the game. Here, I use a Bonker Boost at the start of the fight to make myself a little backboard that I can head hitter out from, rendering his fireball useless and winning me the fight. Overall, Bonker Boosts are a pretty cool advanced technique that allow for higher level movement and more depending on your creativity. Tip 9 is an easy mind game that players of all skill levels can utilize, holding a block at the start of fights to bluff. By running into a fight holding blocks, your opponent might react differently, expecting you to try and block them off. So by holding blocks at the start and then switching to your sword, you can create advantageous fights. You can even left click with the blocks before the fight to sell it even more, since the animation they'll see is basically the same as if you were placing blocks. In this clip, I fake placing blocks on the ground, causing my opponent to pre-jump into the fight, giving me an easy hit select for the kill. In this clip, I hold blocks at the start, making my opponent think we're going to have a block fight, but as he starts placing blocks, I simply switch to my sword and take him by surprise, landing me the kill. This is a very simple bluff that anyone can add to their own games to confuse their opponents and win more fights. The final tip is one I really like. Most people don't know that you can use the top middle slot in your inventory as somewhat of a 10th hotbar slot. When you open your inventory, your cursor starts hovering over this square. So without having to adjust your aim, you can open your inventory, hotkey the item in that slot to your hotbar, close the inventory, and then use that hotkey. It sounds complicated, but in reality, it's just inv hotkey, inv hotkey. So in my case, it's as easy as EQ, EQ. You can do this motion really fast, allowing you to keep items like water or ender pearls there in these intense situations. This is most relevant in the endgame when you have more items than you can fit into the 9 hotbar slots. In this castle clutch, I failed to get the bed and need to escape, so I fireball jump and quickly send my water bucket to my hand, compared to the second jump where I need to search my inventory for the water bucket and almost don't get it in time. In this clip, I trap my opponent and fireball past him, grabbing my water for the landing. You can really see how quick the motion is in this clip. In the final and best example, I'm in a sweaty clutch. You can see in my hotbar that I have all sorts of important items, so being able to make use of the 10th slot is super helpful. I realize my opponent is invis and fireball jump up to get away. Then I need to fireball jump to the nearest base and quickly grab my water from the 10th slot, preventing any fall damage and allowing me to win the following fight. If you watched the whole video, comment 3 for 3 and I'll heart every comment. Also, make sure to subscribe because my best video ever releases soon. A 30 tips and tricks video to help improve your game sense. 30K soon. I hope you enjoyed and I'll see you in the next one.
Like your bitch, come parts on my jeans, you ain't never seen this shit. Now I'm up, I got a couple bad bitches on my dick. I've been on my bankroll, you been lurking on my shit. Sort of talking, every type of use is one-sided. I'm getting hella biz, if you worry about fighting. Hundreds of 50s in my pictures, I ain't tripping.